which I don't know, man. Like I don't really know what to make of it, because
Have you ever talked with Wes?
no, I'd love to. It's funny, when I made my video, people in the comments who said, well, you know, if you're so sure, why don't you just debate him? And I was like, if you watch the video to the end, I said that of course I would talk to him. Like he's like the new like messiah of the Christian movement. Like, of course I talk to him. It'd be like a huge thing. Like everybody wants to talk to him. But he's made a video where he said, I'm probably not going to debate you.
Yes,
where he's just saying, and like I totally understand that, man. You get invitations like up the woo-ha. Like it's crazy when something like that happens to you. But the thing is, half of the comments were saying, oh, why don't you just debate him if you're so scared? And then half of the comments were saying, "Oh, you're just trying to debate him into it. You're just trying to bait him into a debate for clout." So it's like I'm either too scared to debate him, or I'm trying to bait him into a debate.
I'll shut that down right now.
No, but for clarity, like, of course I would love to speak to Wes Huff, but I kind of want people to stop coming after me, pestering me to do it, because the invitation is open. But I also don't want people to go and pester him to do it, because like he's incredibly busy. He's got like a family. He's got stuff going on. Like people don't understand. Like he's a real human being. And also he's just, the other reason I was hesitant about this is because he strikes me as just like a really nice guy. Like he just seems like a very nice guy. Like seems very friendly, really nice, really like excited. And also, by the way, putting biblical scholarship like on the map. Like he goes on Joe Rogan and starts talking about like P52 and like the manuscript traditions surrounding like John's gospel and stuff. Like that is amazing. It's amazing. That is like so cool. And I'm like so excited that that's happening. But the annoying thing is that because he was so popular, actually I'm interested. Can we scroll down and look at the comments on this video while we're talking? Is that like when I made my video about Wes Huff, I was actually like stunned. Yeah, check it out. So like invite Wes Huff on. Tell me you're being paid by Billy without telling me. Did Carson pay you for this hit piece? This like dishonest as usual from the very start. You misrepresent how Wes responded to and it's kind of like, I can't even waste my time to watch this. Mythvision has so much bias against Christianity, jealousy at work here. And when I first started seeing this come through, I genuinely was like, are these just bots? Like, I don't think they are bots, by the way.
Some of them are, I don't think they're bots. A lot of them are not.
When I made my video about Wes Huff, I was stunned by the amount of like, they'll still be there now, like comments, just comments and comments and comments. And it was all the same stuff. Don't read the comments on this video. By the way, none of it was about the content. This was the thing that was suspicious. It was all like, you're jealous of Wes Huff's success, whatever. You're trying to bait him into a debate. You're just upset you didn't go on Joe Rogan or whatever. So, you know, this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But there was such an influx of them that I was like, what is going on? And I saw the same thing happen to Mythvision. I saw the same thing happen to, I think, Cameron Batuzzi when he made a video. He's a Catholic. He makes a video about Wes Huff and the same thing happens. And I was like, whoa, I was genuinely like stunned by it. And so, although I don't like pointing stuff like this out just for the sake of it, there is something kind of gratifying about it. But one doesn't like it, you know, because it essentially feels like gossip. But when you have dealt with months and months of people commenting, being like, well, you're just an idiot, and Wes Huff is a biblical scholar, and you're just a YouTuber guy, it's kind of like, come on, people. Like, let's cut the crap and like actually talk about the content here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. And then, so if that's what's happening to me, and that's what's happening to Mythvision, can you imagine what Billy Carson is going through right now?
Yeah. Now, Billy is a little bit of a separate subject for me personally, because he gives it as much as way more than he takes.
To be clear, like Billy Carson was just talking a lot of nonsense.
Yes, like he's out of his mind.
Like he seems to sort of. I know he's got the whole alien thing going on or whatever. I've never like listened to him before, but I listened to some of him on like Flagrant and a little bit of the debate he had with Wes Huff just because it was like a big deal. And
there's not enough weed in Narnia.
I'm hearing him say things that are just false, and Wes Huff has done a great job of bringing some of that out. So he's like confusing, like he says like the Sinai Bible, and was confusing it with the Gospel of Barnabas. Yeah. And the Sinai Bible is Codex Sinaiticus, the 4th century manuscript of the Bible, and the Gospel of Barnabas is like this apocryphal, like Middle Age. And that makes a huge difference, right? So yeah. So to be clear, I wouldn't defend Billy Carson's claims, but even if you like mess up like that, I'm thinking like, I just can't imagine what it must be like, the comments he's receiving and stuff. But anything about the Wes Huff stuff, for some reason, just got this huge response. And so I can understand why Gnostic Informant is looking at Wes Huff, like, especially as he gets really popular after the Rogan thing and everything, and everyone's saying like, this guy is like such a knowledgeable, brilliant scholar, and Gnostic Informant is like, this guy screwed me over. You know, I can really see why he's so annoyed.
He has a point, and you know, I obviously like he was already coming in here. I was less familiar with some of the details in this because, and I'm going to talk about him, and I want to address some of these points you're making. You're making a lot of really important points here. You know, the internet drama that happens with cults that form comment cults, I stay the fuck out of it.
It's
right.
Great, but I'd never seen it.
I've seen a bunch of that, and I know Neil was like said Gnostic Informant was sending me a bunch of stuff, and I was like, I don't want to know. Like, I know he's coming on the show later, so whatever he wants to say, he'll say, I like things being handled in here. Yeah. I understand that, whether I like that or not, sometimes I don't have control over that.
But look, man, I have been on the wrong end of vegans. I've been on the wrong end of Muslims.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Muslims. I've been on the wrong end. Maybe that could be a bit euphemistic.
I've never met a vegan who's a happy person.
Okay, I was vegan for like 4 years.
Yeah, were you happy?
Next question.
I'm a fucking meathead.
Yeah, so. but my control variable.
Your control variable
might have been a very unhappy meat eating Alex at the same time. But besides the point, I have been on the wrong end of all of these people. I have never seen anything like what happened when I made my video about Wes Huff, and I mean it. I mean, when I pissed off the Muslims. And they were coming after me in the comment section. It didn't even come close to compare. Oh yeah, not harder to. Obviously, they're not like saying I'm going to come to your house and kill you, right? Like they weren't doing that. But I mean, sorry, yeah, sorry. I don't mean to don't misunderstand me here. What I mean is like the level and consistency and amount, like the traffic. I genuinely just couldn't believe it. That's why I was first looking at this, like, is this like bots or something? Because like they were because firstly, none of them were about the content. All of them were identical. You could copy and paste them from my video to
some of it is
Captain Christianity. But like I don't think it is, just to be clear. That's not the accusation I'm making. But it was so stunning to me that I was just like, I just don't understand what's happened here. So I had to make this really long technical video about the book, the Great Isaiah Scrolls and the Dead Sea Scrolls, which I think essentially vindicated most of the stuff that I was saying. I never did my part 2 video responding to Wes Huff, which was going to be about Jesus claiming to be God.
Because of the comment section?
No, not because of that. Just because I got kind of busy. And then one of the big sections that I was going to respond to was about whether Jesus claimed to be God. And I just recently had a debate about this. So I was preparing for the debate. And I kind of didn't want to like use all my arguments in a video and then go and debate because it was better to just save it for the debate. And so and also I was just like extremely busy. And so I just never ended up making it. And I still might. Like I still kind of want to do this part 2 Wes Huff, video.
I would much rather, and I want to see that, to be clear.
But I just didn't want it to seem like it was really coming out of nowhere.
I know. I want to see you two have a conversation and go about it.
I think that on most, like, I mean, because Wes's PhD, as I say, is on like New Testament manuscripts. So when it comes to things like the manuscript tradition and stuff, I think Wes Huff could like crush me. Not that I'd have much to debate him on. I'd query some of his like, I think some of his datings are like definitely against scholarly consensus, but also possibly like I think I'd want to like criticize them, but I would fully anticipate him coming up with some kind of argument or something where I'd go, oh cool, yeah, I'd never heard of that, interesting, because that's his field, and he would like crush me if it were a debate like that. I think there's a world in which we try to have some kind of debate where like it looks really badly for me, and I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, you're so right in ways I didn't know. That I could totally see that happening. I mean, I would much rather just have a conversation with the guy. But again, I don't do the like call out thing. I'm not like, Wes Huff, like come and
yes.
It's like, look, man, like obviously he knows that if he wants to like come on my podcast, he can come on my show.
It doesn't need to be like that though either.
And also him not doing so is no indication of anything. He's just busy, man.
This is the problem with the internet. We are literally talking about like a religious conversation here too, where it's like a fucking 90s rap beef. Like, oh yeah, you got to call him out on the song and then drop, Jay-Z drops this, like Nas drop Ether. It should not be like that. That's ridiculous. There's two things that I think really got to get addressed here that are based on some of the things you've been sharing on this. And I appreciate you giving all the context too for everyone. And also, by the way, anyone who's like claiming someone like you would be clout chasing. I mean, I think last I checked, you have like 3 times the subs. Right. So that's bullshit. And you've been around a lot longer.
Right.
Number 1. Wes's video about I Won't Debate You. I'm not going to say some of the stuff that I discussed with Wes offline about that because that's a personal conversation, but I will tell you some of my thoughts on that I also did. I said to him at least. But Wes, I think because he also blew up so fast over something that is so important to him and so many people, which is the meaning of life, like the religion, he is extremely afraid to get things wrong and let people down in that way, and like maybe be the put out something that could be pulled as a string to say the whole house of cards doesn't exist with relation to Christianity, which unfortunately, if you're going to hold yourself to that standard, I don't even think Jesus had that standard. So I was like, you don't need to feel that way. Secondly, I'm like, dude, like if you listen to his podcast with Joe that he did in January, Joe even said it at one point when he was referring to Billy, where he's like, if you woke me up in the middle of the night and asked me about MMA or something to debate, he's like, I have enough that I could be like, wait, oh yeah. And I could go right into it. So when Wes says, I would need at least 6 months to prepare, no, the fuck you don't. You're not, it's a live debate. It's communication. It's not scripted. You're going to go back and forth. You will get some things wrong. You will hope to get more things right. If you know your shit, it's going to go down correctly. So I thought that was a bad argument, but there's also some stuff like, as you said, and I appreciate you saying that, like he's got some life stuff going on too. And a lot was being thrown at him all at once. Everyone wanted to debate him, including some people, not you, who were unheard of, who were just trying to clout chase to debate him for sure. So there was a lot going on there, but that also comes down to what has formed here, which you've talked about a lot, which is like the cult around this stuff. And it's so fascinating to me because some of it is bots, but to your point, a lot of it is not. And you know, I always talk about the concept, the universal law of physics. For every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. It explains everything in the world. I'm a firm believer in equilibrium, in literally everything. It's like my curse in life. I see both sides. I understand why it lands here. But the violence of a reaction here to an action here is far lesser than the violence of a reaction here to an action here, right? And for people listening, not watching, I widen my hands with these two fists. And so when you see that over time and it literally gets to the meaning that people have on this earth, which in this case they may define in their religion. You use the word yourself about Wes being this new Messiah or whatever. There are people who view him that way. And they're like, oh my God, we finally have a dude who can shadow box with people on the language and the text and the actual history and the ancient, you know, the Graham Hancock version of like Christianity.
And it's not just that, it's the fact that through whatever fortuitous circumstances, he's ended up on the biggest platform in the world of Joe Rogan. So even if people don't think that he's like the guy they would have chosen or whatever, it's like, well, he's now the guy. Like he's on Rogan. Like we need him to do well. We want him to do well. And everyone's very excited about it. And we hope that he does well, you know, and that's cool. That's great, you know. But like, there's so much to say. I mean, about like the debate thing. Like debates are also. I have a sort of on and off relationship with debates, and I don't know if I would be interested in debating Wes Huff. Like if it was set up, like yeah, sure. I mean that'd be a big thing, but I'd much rather just talk to him because the thing that gets lost is
I see.
There's so much that's so interesting to talk about. Like, and when he says I'd have to prepare for a really long time. And you rightly say, well, if it's your area of expertise, as Rogan says, it's the first thing he says in their interview. Like, if you woke me up in the middle of the night, I'd be able to talk about this. It's like, yeah, you could talk about it. But if you're doing a debate, it's kind of a different story. Also because, like, if I had a debate with Wes Huff, we might talk about the reliability of the Gospels or the nature of Jesus. That's my wheelhouse. But we might also get into talking about manuscript traditions. That's his wheelhouse. So I would have to prepare because the conversation will go into areas that are not my expertise. And if it were a conversation, I could go, oh, okay, so tell me about this. I'm interested in this because you know about this. Can I ask you some questions? Whereas in a debate, it has to be, here's my rebuttal. You know,
right?
And so
you're going official.
So
I see what you're saying.
For a debate, you kind of do have to prepare,
but not 6 months.
Depends on the nature of the debate.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you universally say 6 months for anyone, and we also know, and like his logic was, he said this part publicly. You know, well, I had 24 hours for Billy because that was Billy, and like to an extent, I get it because he's not even a moving target, but you know. You could probably talk to someone in a week if you had to. Maybe you're not going to be perfectly as scholarly as sharp, but like if you're gonna, and this is just my opinion with anyone, whether it be Wes, whether it be you, if you're going to be an expert in a certain space and go and put your opinions out there, if you can't take the heat, don't come in the kitchen.
I think I agree to some degree, but I also do think that there are people who like producing educational content but aren't debaters. I don't think Wes Huff considers himself like a debater. That's not who he is. He's like an educator, and he likes making informational videos and stuff. There's a kind of temperament that you need to have to debate. Like, there are people who are awful at debating but are incredibly good communicators. And I understand if someone says, look, that's just not how I roll. That's not what I do. Even if, but the thing is, there are ways around it. Like, firstly, you have a conversation or a podcast. But I understand that, say Wes Huff saw this and said, okay, I want to speak to Alex. Even if we say, oh, it's just a conversation, he can't prevent me from like coming in with like a debate energy and like acting as if it's a debate and kind of trying to trap him in that way. So he's got to be ready for that, which means he'd have to prepare. I wouldn't do that, or I'd try not to do that, of course, but he doesn't know that, and I understand that he can't trust that with any conversation that he has. But there are other ways around it. Like, you can do a series of response videos. You can do, people have done, they don't get as many views, but they're quite effective. I saw Cameron Batuzzi did this a while back, where, you know, a debate, he's a Catholic YouTuber capturing Christianity. Yeah. You know, people in debates, they do opening statement, then the rebuttal, then a Q&A or whatever. They did this, but each of those segments was a video. So they put out the opening statement, 20-minute video, and then the other person can watch it, can take their time, take as long as they like, and put out their opening statement. Then for the rebuttal, this person... So it's formatted. There's a set format, but in between every speech, you get to stop, think, go, research, like, and it's just such a brilliant way of doing a debate, because what you're seeing is two people who you've chosen because you think they're good at what they do, but giving them the time and space to actually think and respond to everything. It's not like, oh, can you remember this on the spot? Oh, you're going to, you know, because people make fun of this. Like, in a debate, they'll be like, if someone like starts typing on the computer, they'll be like, oh, he's Googling the answers because he doesn't know, oh, look, he's fried, you know? It's like, okay, but that's only interesting on like a gossip level. Like, if you actually want to know what the most interesting answer he could come up with is, which is ostensibly why you're here, then give him a month to think about it, you know? And so there are ways around this sort of, I don't want to debate, I need to prepare kind of thing. I like that as an idea, right? So there's loads of stuff that you could do.
By the way, you're also talking, like, you're referring, this should be stated, you're referring to like the official like word debate and what that means from like the old school debating format. When I'm being a little more liberal with my use of debate.
So just like getting two people in a room.
Yeah, like get them in this fucking podcast studio and talk. You know what? Like, we're not going to sit here and be like, and the first subject is going to be that. It's more just live.
But also, I understand that Wes is like hot property. At least he has been. I don't know how. And after the Rogan thing, it was like stratospheric. I don't know if that's still going at the same rate. I don't know if it's going to sort of tailor out or whatever. But there's a sense in which it's sort of like, know your worth. Like, don't go and like debate, you know, anybody or this person or that guy, especially if you feel like you don't have time to prepare and it'll be a bad look for you for that reason. Like, do your thing, man. Like, you are experiencing this unimaginable experience that like that people dream of. It's like, enjoy it, man. Take the time, like make it content that's interesting to you. Use it for projects that you care about. He's got his Apologetics Canada thing. I think it's like an organization. He puts on events. Yeah, put all of your effort into leveraging what you're doing to make that a success. Like, it makes so much more sense. I totally understand it. And for what it's worth, I have spoken to Wes, like you know, over message or whatever. It's not like he's like ignoring me or whatever. Like,
that's good.
I know that he's just like a guy with a lot going on and seems like a nice dude. All this kind of stuff. Like,
very nice.
Like, cool. It's why I don't, you know, I like, but I don't like doing all of this kind of stuff. And I hope if he sees this and is watching, he knows that like. He understands why I think it's important to point this out.
Yeah, he'll see. I'm going to send it to him.
But at the same time, like, I'm not just trying to take a stab in the dark here, right? But yeah, I mean, of course, the invitation remains open for him to come on my show. But also, like, that's my show, that's my thing. He doesn't have a show, but like, maybe one day it will happen, and it might take a year or two or more for it to calm down or whatever, or maybe it will never happen. I don't know, but
yeah, I would just,
whatever, man. You know, like, okay, we'll see what happens.
I would love to see an open discussion of the idea that religion has to be perfect. Is this expectation we've put on things? Because I do feel like that's a part of it. People feel like if they admit that one thing may not hold water to evidence, that means the whole thing's not true. And to me, you know, it's ironic. We open up this conversation talking about like the perfect timing or whatever you want to say about how the universe is even
the multiverse,
world is even able to exist. Yet the great paradox to that is that things are also so beautifully imperfect. That's what defines humanity, at least in how I see it. And I don't see why that can't be the case with religion, even with a deified figure like Jesus Christ. We already pointed out that the Gospels that project him to be perfect also show things where he's not necessarily perfect, which I like. I think that's cool, but there's this idea that, oh, you can't talk about this because that would be blasphemy or whatever. Well, that's a non-starter. And I'm very careful because you pointed out, like when it comes to specific people, even maybe like a Wes or something like that, the comments will get weird. But when you start to talk about people's beliefs, they get real defensive about it. Yeah. And I get that. So I try to do it as respectfully as I can. My own producer, Alessi, is like an enormous Christian. He's got the chain out right now. Like the dude, Lawrence Krauss walked in here who believes something came from nothing. The dude's wearing a cross shirt. I'm like, maybe not the day for that, but whatever, it's cool. That's fine. So we have great discussions about this. Obviously, we come at it from a different lens. So I know it's possible to do that. Yeah. But for some reason, so many people are unwilling to do that, and I think it kind of defeats the purpose of like what someone like Jesus is supposed to stand for, which is like one of the things I would say is like listening to other people and understanding where they come from.
Jesus did have debates of a kind. It's kind of interesting watching his sort of confrontations with the Pharisees and the like. But the thing that does get lost is how interesting it all is. Yeah. So like on Wes's Rogan episode, he talks briefly about some of the like Gnostic Gospels and why they're not part of the canon, and talks about the motivation for not including them, and says that they seem to be like theologically motivated. I would love to talk to him about his idea about the theological motivations of the Gnostic Gospels versus the canonical Gospels. If that were a debate, I mean, in my video, he says, like, well, part of the problem as to why these Gnostic Gospels aren't included is because I might be misquoting him here, but he says something like, because they seem to have, like, theological motivations. They seem to have been written with, like, an apologetical purpose. And I'm like, well, so do the canonical Gospels. People think that about the canonical Gospels as well. And a lot of people were like, well, you cut out the reason that he gave because he was specifically talking about, their uncomfortability with like the tomb story or whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but like I've got interesting things to say on that, but I don't want to do it on the format of like, well, Wes says this, but I say to you, I want it to be like, well, hey man, what do you think about this? There's some really interesting like apologetical motives within the Gospels, even on the tomb itself. So like Wes is talking about how one of these apocryphal texts has people like camped outside the tomb because like it's really important to them to show that like the tomb was being watched, that the body couldn't have been stolen or something. Like it was really, and this is part of the motivation. Yeah, I might be sort of misquoting or paraphrasing or whatever that, but there's some interesting stuff about the tomb in the New Testament. Like this is so interesting.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.